I recently had a conversation with one of my viewers. In fact, he's a channel member, so shout out to John. We spoke last weekend for nearly an hour about different topics and content online, and a little bit about what I've got going on over here. And part of the conversation that we had was really intriguing to me. In fact, several days later, I started to give it a little bit of thought. And the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to open up this discussion here in the comments and in this video to everybody that's watching. In a moment, I'm going to share a little bit of behind the scenes information about this channel. But I want to talk a little bit about what's going on with the younger guys, and more specifically, those guys that are about ages 20 to 25, and why are they continuing to make the same mistakes that us, as I've mentioned before, Gen Xers and Boomers have been saying for decades, and the risks associated with getting married, having children, even things like career selection and going to college. So I want to have a discussion about where we are with all of that. So give me some comments. I really hope that we can get a solid discussion going on. So with that in mind, let's dive in, have a little bit of look at the demographics of my viewers, and then have this conversation.
It's time to all choose your timeline on the roller coaster of life.
So as we get started, let me just give another shout out to all of our channel members here on YouTube and the new ones that we have over on Patreon, where I share exclusive content, extended content, and things over on Patreon that don't make it into my full YouTube channel. So thank you all for your support. I really do appreciate it. Lets me know that I'm on the right track with a lot of you. So here's what I want to get into today. That conversation I mentioned a moment ago. Here's a little bit of information about the demographics, the behind the scenes part of this channel. As you can see, my viewership shows that only 2.6%, that's less than 3% of my viewers, are age 18 to 24, right? I'm going to broadly put them into the 20 to 25 type range. Those guys that are adults and making adult decisions at this time in their life. So I'm curious about your thoughts on this. So please do give me as many comments as you can to continue this dialogue. I'm really curious about it. But why is it that some things only matter after it's cost something, right? So we get to a place and then we get the shit kicked out of us, and then we start making changes rather than taking information that's available to us and making more informed decisions before we get to that space, if that makes sense. So I guess you could say, or also along the lines of, why are people ignoring certain advice for years and then suddenly it clicks when it happens to them, right? So again, take a look at my viewership here. As you can see, most of it is, I'm looking at my notes here, overwhelmingly age 35 and over. So 35 to 64-ish, right? And it's definitely a pattern by this time, right? Almost 6,000 subs here on YouTube now. At this point, the channel is closing in on a year. I think we're at 10 months now. So it's not random. And as I always say, I'm not here to tell people what to do with their lives. I feel like my job and what I love doing, I'm very passionate about giving people information and letting them make their own decisions based on that reality and those facts and data that I share. Right? So I'm here to give facts and data so guys can make informed decisions. And I honestly think that guys make decisions that they believe are in the best interest of themselves and others at the time of making those decisions. But they do it without being fully informed. And my curiosity here is, why are they not informed? Because the information by this time is available for them out there. Again, I'm not the only guy in here talking about experiences, what happens to us. I know many of you in the comments have shared your experiences with a lot of the content that I put out as well. In fact, another thing that prompted me to have this discussion is, there's been a few comments in recent videos in which guys say something along the lines of, listen, if guys are going to get married, if they're going to have kids, or if they're going to go into college or study this field, then I have no sympathy for them. They get what they deserve at this point because they've been warned. The information is out there for them. And I got to tell you, I don't necessarily disagree with that. Guys are not, for some reason, getting the information, even though it is available to them if they want it, and they are hearing some of it and maybe just choosing to ignore it. So again, I don't want to bash on those younger guys. I'm genuinely curious about what it is about content that exposes the risks for men in their careers, in their education, and in their relationships. Hell, it could even be just relationships with coworkers or parents. So I think there's a few different things here, and again, give me your opinion on these. So one of the explanations that I came up with or thought of is that guys in their early 20s, they haven't had a lot of high stakes in their life yet, right? There's a lot of low pressure things, or at least it seems, but they're making small decisions now that will have decades long impacts, right? But I think at this time, at that stage in their lives, everything sounds theoretical, if you will. Oh, this is what happens to other people. Oh, this is what happens in that research study. It's not going to happen to me, or I don't fully understand, right? So a lot of it is just in the abstract for them, right? So without that loss or pain, there's no urgency for them to seek out information and to understand the real risks for them. Another thing is competing content that's more attractive, right? So I understand that my content is very dense a lot of times. I'm not going to start changing the way that I present my content. I'm going to keep doing what I do because I love it. It's a challenge for me. It's engaging for me, and I think it's very, very helpful. I am not going to start changing the content that I do to appease any aged group. But I think what other guys are receiving from some channels is entertainment, shortcuts, quick wins, the dopamine. It's the women are all bitches type stuff, all right? So my content, I think, requires slowing down and thinking. And in a lot of ways, that loses short-term attention for a lot of guys. Again, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm just curious about how all of this might be perceived by the different age groups. Another thing I thought of was that, in early 20s, guys are still building their worldview, right? So anything that challenges it gets ignored. If I don't actually see this happen, then I don't understand that it might be true or the impact that it might happen. But once then they get into their 30s and their brothers and their friends, their coworkers start getting taken through the ringer, that's when they start to really understand, right? But their worldview is not being challenged at that age of 20 to 25, right? Another explanation I was thinking of is, and this is online specific and even more so to YouTube, that is likely pushing fast, emotional, and reactive content. And I think that's why I like a lot of the Andrew Tate stuff does really well. And the guys that are reacting to women on TikTok and I don't know, making fun of them, calling them all, again, bitches and whores, things like that. That's not the style of my content. But again, how much of that stuff is being throttled by YouTube, I don't know. But it definitely does hit that quick, reactive content type area for guys. And I wonder if YouTube is pushing a lot of that stuff more, and it's just simply more in line with what younger guys want to see. I don't know. So again, as I mentioned, none of my content will ever be about don't ever get married, don't ever trust women, all women are stupid, or this happens every time you get into a relationship, or say these 2 or 3 things. None of my content will ever be about that. I will give you the facts, followed by some commentary and what it means for men. That's the process that I use for my videos. If you go through any of the videos I've put out so far, 90% of the time my content is going to be here's the facts, here's the commentary, and what it means for men. That's the process that I flow with. But getting back to comments that I often receive in a lot of my videos is there's a lot of guys that say, I wish I knew this 20 or 30 years ago. And that's what got me, again, a little bit more curious. I'm like, here, and it's not just me, a lot of us are out there, again, sharing our stories and sharing information so that guys don't get into their 40s and 50s like we are, not having been told or not having the information available to us, right? Consider a delayed awareness, if you will. So again, I think that a lot of times guys will go through this process of learning and then being interested, and it really matters to them when it happens to them, when it's already too late, right? So there's a couple of different groups I think that watch my content. Again, for those of you who are younger, to age 25 or younger, I'm interested in what brought you here. Was it something that you went through? Was it something that you saw maybe your uncle or a father or somebody else go through? What is it about the content that brought you to this channel? Was it a specific video? Was it just curiosity? And for those of you who are 35 and older, I'm curious how much of this information about men's risk in relationships, whether it's child custody, anything like that, child support, risks with marriage, getting your educations, again, as I mentioned, selecting your career. How much of that did you fully understand at that age? And I realize that those of us in our 50s, we were in our 20s back in the 90s, right? So at that time, there was really no information. If we didn't have an uncle or a dad to tell us this stuff, we simply didn't know. But now the information's out there for people. But for those of you who are a little older, I'm curious. I imagine that for many of you, my content just reinforces what you already know. But I'm curious also what brought you here, and if you could share some gems with those younger guys. Again, I am not going to start making content to cater to the younger guys. My content is out here if they want it. If they don't want to look to watch it or to understand it or care anything like that, then I wholeheartedly put that on them. Anyway, that's it. A little bit different content video today, but I'm really curious about this conversation about what's going on with the younger guys, and at what point, at what stage in life does it really start to matter for guys to understand these issues? So again, as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to a great discussion in the comments, even among viewers. So thanks for being here. I'll be back very soon. I've got some great content coming up, and have a great day.